I am 100% convinced, and I've decided that yesterday was the strangest conversation that I've ever been a part of, and it's not even close. And it's the most uncomfortable conversation that I've ever been a part of. And it makes me extremely uncomfortable to think back, even watching some parts of that episode last night, debate, or whatever we want to call it. And it's for a number of different reasons. All right. For a number of different reasons that we're going to get into. I've seen a lot of you all's response. I've even went over to his channel. We're going to talk about the response from those on his channel. Because let's not forget the most important thing here. The important thing here is not about me. It's not about Warren. It's about what truly happened with Charlie Kirk. That cannot get lost in sight. And there were just a number of things that took place yesterday that I believe we definitely need to discuss, because this is a teachable moment. This is not about us as YouTubers, bro. I'm not that important. We're not that important. I think it's a lot bigger. I think there's other things that are happening, and I want to discuss them. I took quite a bit of notes, and we're going to talk a little bit about, and I'm going to show you all Warren's video, his original video that sort of started all of this. And I believe the only reason why Warren decided to have a conversation with me, still respect him for doing it, but I believe the reason why he decided to do it is because there was an overwhelming amount of you. It's because of you all. And I'm grateful and I appreciate you all. The internet is a heck of a thing, man. That's the first time I think I've ever sort of asked for something like that. And you all did it. I was like, whoa. I went over to his video a couple days ago and I was seeing hundreds. At first, I just saw a few comments, and then many people from Patreon. It's just like 10,000 of you from Patreon. Many of you from Patreon here on YouTube, X, and I believe even Discord went over and just was spamming him. And he ended up responding on Twitter, and the conversation took place. I want to talk about quite a few things about this conversation with this guy. Let me make sure I go in order. Before I get into this, as always, please hit the like button on your way in. That goes a long way. Bays at the Real Bays. If you see this, bro, I reached out to see if you wanted to have this conversation with me. I see that you reacted to the conversation last night. So I thought it would be appropriate to bring you on. So I am reconsidering accepting other debates. Other people have accepted debate challenges. I called out Warren, and there were a plethora of other people. Jake Rattlesnake, I called him out, and he called me dumb and told me to find a new hobby. Of course, you would never come on camera and have this conversation with me, because respectfully, you will be embarrassed, much like Andrew Wilson. If Andrew Wilson's going to get embarrassed, and that's the guy who you all look up to, you're going to get embarrassed as well, because you're not on the side of truth, bro. You're just not. You say that you're defending logic. That's what you all say, but you have to come up with gimmicks and all these different strategies. Why do you have to be strategic when talking about truth? You don't have to. You can just be free-minded and speak freely if you're on the side of truth. That's all it takes. It doesn't take strategy, bro. It doesn't. And I think what we saw from Warren yesterday demonstrates that, respectfully, when you are uncertain and or when you're knowingly on the side of something that's not the truth, then you have to do all these other different strategies and deflections and distractions to take away and masquerade the fact that you don't know what you're talking about. All right. And so I am reconsidering. Apparently, one of the guys that went to Candace Owens' house, when Andrew Wilson went, I don't know if he's specifically a part of the Steven Crowder crew, but maybe, I don't know. But one of the gentlemen called me out on Twitter and said that he is willing to debate. And I accepted the debate, and we were discussing just a little bit before me and Warren spoke yesterday. But after that conversation with Warren yesterday, it was very draining. I saw many of you all's comments in real time, and I also saw him afterwards that, Didi, you should have cut the conversation short after so many minutes. And what's strange is that people on his side, his worldview, feel the same way. Like they felt like he was wasting his time talking to me. It's amazing. It's amazing. So let's start with the first thing. So at the very beginning of the conversation, I made the statement that Jesus Christ is Lord. And if you don't have a relationship with him, I pray that you are able to gain a relationship with him sometime within your life. It didn't dawn on me until after the fact that I don't know if this is true. Warren, if you see this, I don't know if it's true. But I wonder if that bothered him, if that triggered him maybe. Because I didn't even bother to ask, and I wanted to, and I meant to. I don't know what his religious background is, and I don't know what his ethnicity is. Does anybody know what his genetic background is, if you will? What's his race or his ethnicity? Does anybody know? Is he European? Is he Jewish? Because I don't know. So I thought that was interesting. And I didn't take that into mind. I didn't take that into consideration. I'm looking at my notes here because I want to make sure that I do this correctly. Much throughout the debate, the conversation with Warren, I noticed it almost immediately, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't looking into it too much. It was very apparent to me that he was patronizing me, gaslighting me, speaking with much sarcasm, quite a bit of sarcasm, speaking as if there's this inside joke. Another term I used was passive aggressive. I felt like he was very passive aggressive. And by the end of the conversation, it was very apparent to me that he was using this as a strategy, as a disguise, if you will, because he didn't know very much about this case, much like Andrew Wilson. Outside of some of the biggest mainstream narratives that's been shared, he didn't know much of the case at all, just like Andrew Wilson. This was strange to me because I'm like, I'm here to yes, discuss your video, which, by the way, again, I'm going to play that in today's video too. And this live won't be too long. I just want to recap because, like I said, this is a teachable moment. I'm going to tell you what we can learn from talking to people like Warren, and I'm going to tell you who and what I think Warren actually is. Many of you all see YouTubers and think that they're just people who decided to start a YouTube channel, and all of us don't have the same origin stories. Some of these people are plants. I truly believe, allegedly, I truly believe that. I don't think some of these people's stories are organic. I think a lot of these things are manufactured. I do. So I did notice that he was gaslighting me and patronizing me throughout the entire conversation. But every time I would ask him, like, are you being sarcastic? Are you like, he'll say, I think he admitted to like slightly being sarcastic, maybe 2 or 3 times. But most of the time, he was claiming that no, he was being authentic. Okay. Just to then admit at the very end of the conversation that not only was he sarcastic for most of the interview, but I should have also noticed and knew that he was being sarcastic, even though this is my first time speaking. I don't know if he's on a spectrum or not. I'm not here to shoot out ad hominems, but a person that speaks that normally, that is to say, you're speaking in the same tone the entire interview, but I'm supposed to know that different times is sarcasm, even though it all sounds the same. That's not how sarcasm works. If I'm sarcastic with you all and you've never heard me speak before, and this is your first time clicking on my channel, I can bet you one thing, you probably know. Something tells me that you'll know that I'm being sarcastic, or I'll do something to make sure that you know that I'm being sarcastic. He didn't do that. That was strange. Just a very strange interview. Before we even got on camera, he literally told me, he said, first and foremost, it took him forever to get it set up until I realized towards the end there was something I had to change on my side so that he can stream it to his channel. But up until that point, it was taking him so long to figure things out, which was confusing me. I didn't know if he was trolling me. So the reason why we were late yesterday, a little behind starting, was because he told me he joined like last minute. And I was like, is this guy about to like ghost me? And that was supposed to be his like get back. But he ended up showing up, as you all know. So interesting. Let me save this comment because that'll come up later. So but whenever he finally joined the platform and he got onto the screen, this is before I went live. He's like, I didn't expect him to be sitting outside or anything. He's like setting up his platform, which I thought was pretty cool that he was setting up outside. I was like, okay, that's different. And then he goes, "Hey man, you can go ahead and set up." I was like, "Do what?" He was like, "You can go ahead and start it." He's not even looking at me while he's saying it. I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm just gonna wait until you're done, bro. I'm just gonna wait until you're done." And so, yeah, um, yeah, it was very apparent to me that he didn't know the case at all. But yet he claims on his channel that he thinks critically. If you all remember, he says that he thinks critically. He's a teacher, or he used to be a teacher, and he, I believe, even teaches people how to think critically. Yet throughout the majority of this conversation, I struggle to see how yeah, people are constantly saying like he didn't even look me in the eyes at all. He glanced up a couple of times. I noticed that. I thought that was strange. I just thought the whole thing was very strange. Um, I also want to state that he messaged me after the fact, after the live was over. Obviously, as you all know, it ended very strangely. I waited until the end of the conversation to let him know that I didn't appreciate what he did, but he's free to behave immaturely if he wants to. Um, but that's on him. He seemed very confused why I wasn't happy with his performance and his behavior. But then after the live ended, he messaged me on Twitter, which I didn't click on it, and I also haven't responded to it even to this point, and I don't plan to. He responded, was like, genuinely, thank you for the talk. And I'm like, "Uh, this is so strange, dude. Like, am I reading you wrong, bro? You have a considerably nice size platform, and you're spewing things from my point of view that is complete nonsense about this case, about what supposedly happened with Charlie Kirk. And so that's what I want to talk about. It's also interesting because something weird was happening with my views. And Jesse on Fire, shout out to Jesse on Fire. Jesse on Fire actually pointed this out when I was on his platform, that we had like maybe, I don't know, maybe 5,000-6,000 people concurrently watching or something on his end. And then out of nowhere, like 1,000 or 2,000 people just dropped off immediately. How does that many people drop off at once? That's almost impossible. That's not a real thing. Like, that's literally not a thing. On my end, I had already had some weird things going. I had like 2,200 people, and then at some point it would drop down to like 1,900. So 300 people just dipped, or it would then drop 400. Just 400 people just dipped, and then it would jump back up to 2,000, and it would stay at 2,000, which is almost virtually impossible to keep it at a whole round number like that for an extended period of time. But that's what it did. So I was like, my YouTube channel is glitching or something. Well, something weird happened yesterday with the conversation with Mr. Warren as well. Because typically, for those of you that don't know how this typically works, I'll have like 1,500 people on average that come into the live by the time that I end, that is. And I'll probably keep it somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000, maybe 1,200 to 2,000 consistently. And then in the midst of that happening, by the time the live ends, I'll probably do like 10,000 views within the first 10 minutes. And then it'll probably go on to do like 30,000 views. Live videos are kind of weird how the views work. But but I can expect to get somewhere around 20 to 50,000 views, somewhere in that ballpark, with 1,500 concurrent viewers. There are other factors that matter as well. Well, yesterday we had almost 3,000 people in the live, and it was pretty much almost 3,000 most of the entire live. But if you go to the video right now, weird things was happening with the concurrent live viewers, the live viewers in real time. But if you look at the views right now, you would think that nobody really watched the video. It's very strange. So, anyways, I'm just sharing it to say, like, that's something else I noticed about that video, that the views are behaving strangely. Many of you all was asking or theorized that you thought and felt like he was high. He was on something. I don't know. I definitely understand why you all believe that. I don't know enough about him to know. It wasn't as apparent to me that he may have been under the influence as it was for many of you. But I had several people reach out to me and say, Didi, I've watched his videos for years, and I've never seen him look like that. I've never seen him behave like that. It was very strange. And to me, if you're asking for my opinion, it looks like he was intoxicated or inebriated. And then I saw many of you in the comment section were saying the same thing. So, yeah. I also noticed that he was not honest with his behavior, because at one point, if you all remember from yesterday's conversation, which, by the way, it is linked in the description to the debate, if you want to call it a debate, because Warren, he framed it on Twitter, and when he messaged me privately, he never once called it a debate. He said he wants to have a conversation with me. That's what he kept calling it, a conversation. Okay, interesting. Because I'm challenging your view. So by definition, I feel like that would be a debate, but I guess we can have a conversation about it and just disagree here and there. But at one point in the conversation, I was making the point, which, by the way, I presented, I humbly, I believe I demonstrated very convincingly that the quote unquote evidence that the case has presented is not very credible and is extremely questionable at the very least. Warren seemed to not care about that, but we'll get to that in just a moment. At one point, in slaughtering or attempting to slaughter this quote unquote evidence of blurry images and blurry videos and, very sketchy text messages, I make the point that we're supposed to believe that a gentleman with a 4.0 GPA who is extremely intelligent is trying to do as best as he can, as much as he can, to avoid being caught. That is by talking about going to get his weapon. He's going to go and try to retrieve his weapon when nobody else is around. He's also, while talking about this, typing out these long, very extremely weirdly detailed messages about every single thing that he did, engraving the bullets, and that's his gun, and you're going to see him on camera, and that's definitely him, and he definitely shot Charlie. This is the reason he shot Charlie. But the reason he said that he shot Charlie is because of politically motivated LGBTQ issues that Lance Twiggs would then testify during the preliminary hearing that Tyler Robinson literally never talked about, ever. So anyways, when I brought this up, Warren misunderstood what I said at the beginning and said that, no, I don't have a 4.0 GPA. And I was still in the middle of talking. So I heard him say something and I go, wait, I'm sorry. Say what? He goes, no, I thought you, never mind. I was cracking a joke. I was making a joke. He wasn't making a joke. So that what makes me think that maybe this guy is on a spectrum, because not to say that he's not intelligent. I think he's very intelligent, but I believe he may be on the spectrum, because why would you, I'm going to click off of these chats. They're coming in too fast. So my thing is this. If you misunderstood what I said, that's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that. We all misunderstand, misinterpret, mishear something. Cool. Once you understand what I actually said, just go, oh, I thought you said something else. But instead of just sort of just conceding to that or just admitting that, he goes, oh, no, I was making a joke. But you weren't making a joke. You thought I said you had a 4.0 GPA. Like, that was strange to me. I was like, yeah, I don't think this guy's wanting to be honest or something. I think he has maybe a little bit of too much pride. He's on a spectrum or something. Strange. Just very strange. This is something else I want to talk about. I suspect that this guy may be a Freemason. I don't know if he is. I'm going to show you all why I think that. And I'm not going to lie. During my conversation with him, I kind of was getting some weird vibes. And that's usually something I'll ask a person directly if I remember to ask it. This person says D.D. Warren's entire scholar society is about Mustache Man and quote-unquote faith. Okay, that's interesting. I don't even know if y'all know the story about Mustache Man from Germany versus the Freemasons. I may need to do a video on that. If you all want to see a video on that, if 150 people comment that, I will dedicate, I can do a live or I can do a pre-recorded video with B-roll and images and video clips, and I'll give you all the breakdown on his quote-unquote supposed war against the Freemasons in Germany. But for the time being, let's go over to this guy's channel, man. I want to show you all his merchandise. Maybe you all, something tells me that many of you all have already saw it, but just in case you haven't seen it, I want to show you what his store looks like. So this is his merchandise. So first of all, his channel is called Warren Smith's Secret Scholar Society. Very interesting title. A mind of your own is a battle for independent thought at a time when divisiveness and confusion rule. Well, I mean, I agree with that on its surface for sure. Let's his designs are very interesting to me. Okay, you can't see when it clicks over, so let's just keep it here. Let's zoom in some more. Do y'all see this? Very interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. Crest dot cut sticker. Very interesting. Because there are different variations of many things when it all goes back to one. With a lot of these societies, like, so in other words, like fraternities and sororities is just low level Freemasonry. High level gang members, all of it is low level Freemasonry with gangs, but the high level members understand this. There's a lot of the foot soldiers that don't understand it until later, if ever. So I found that very interesting. And I don't know if the chat is in the way. Let me move the chat. We can look at it that way. Yeah. Very interesting. What else did I notice? I want to remind people that, which is very strange. It seemed that Warren didn't seem to care about this, but Tyler Robinson, and again, this is on a two-dimensional level. Tyler Robinson is innocent until proven guilty. That's how it works in this country. Why does it seem to me that not only people at TPUSA, but folks like Warren and Andrew Wilson and these people, they don't have to say the words, but it just appears that Tyler Robinson is already guilty and we need to prove that he's innocent. Like, it's very strange, the backwards logic here. While we're accused of arguing logic backwards, no, like I think we're arguing from the right position. Until it's proven, you have to presume that the man is innocent. And we're going to look at the evidence that they are saying supposedly proves that this man did such and such. And if we see all these holes and flaws and irregularities and inconsistencies and lies and uncertainty surrounding the evidence, why should we believe that it's been proven that he's guilty? That's how it works. And there was a lot of confliction with my conversation with him about the prompt. He kept saying, I see you want to talk about the case, but I want to talk about the debate, because based on the prompt that was presented, Candace Owens not only lost the debate against Andrew Wilson, he says that she convincingly lost it, and she disappointed him, and she lost it extremely badly. I'm going to tell you, I don't think he's honest. I think we're going to see that he wasn't honest anyways, but I'm going to show you something later from his video and his channel that shows you he didn't go into that conversation rooting for Candace or hoping Candace would. No, I don't buy it 1 second. And I think I'll be able to showcase that here in just a moment. So this is just a reminder for everybody. So this is 2 minutes and 38 seconds into the quote unquote debate. If we're going to call it a debate, keep in mind that the first 2 minutes mostly was Patrick Bet-David sort of introducing them, talking about how we got to this point, and the likes. He thanked Joe Rogan. He thanked what's his name, Michael Knowles, for almost moderating the debate, if you will. So we're going to let this play, and we're going to listen to what Andrew Wilson's job was. what claim he was defending.
Today. So with that being said, Andrew, your claim is overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. Opening statements.
So we already know Andrew Wilson did not demonstrate overwhelming evidence. Instead, what he did was listed all the things, right? The quote unquote things that are listed as evidence, because evidence doesn't always mean proof. I understand that. So they list these things out, and he says it as if it's sort of the hammer down. It's like the end all be all. And the reason why that's important is because of the first words he's about to say here.
Comments.
Sure. And what I mean by overwhelming is I just find it very convincing.
First and foremost, that's not what overwhelming means, but fine. If you want to, what overwhelming means, or what is considered, rather what's considered overwhelming to a person, I guess it is subjective. I would agree with Warren when he stated that yesterday. Here's the problem. He said that it's convincing, but like I just stated, the reason why the things that he listed are an issue is because it's not very convincing. And not only that, because you're going to say that, well, that's subjective. The problem is Andrew Wilson agrees. He literally agreed with Candace Owens in this discussion that a lot of the evidence that he has listed is not overwhelming. That it's not clear that it's Tyler Robinson on video. It's not clear that Tyler Robinson is in the parking garage based on the images. It's not clear that it's Tyler Robinson in the stairs. It's not even clear that there's a rifle stuffed in his pants. There's no shot of anybody taking a shot from the roof, right? There's no video footage of this shot, of this supposed shot. The text messages are in question because the defense was not allowed to have the actual device. I believe it's Tyler's phone that they haven't been able to get access to in order to run the metadata to find out where these text messages were supposedly sent. One of the most important things that shouldn't go unnoticed, yet I mentioned it to Warren, and he almost didn't even want to talk about it. How do you explain these supposed text messages that were sent, I think like 9, 10 o'clock that night, after it was reported that Tyler Robinson was Mirandized at 6:25 p.m.? How do you explain that? See, I'm actually invested in this case. I'm like delving into the details of this case, and I want to, as intellectuals, iron sharpens iron. If you want to have a discussion and not a debate, then fine, let's talk about it. But it was clear to me that he doesn't even know these things. And so I was like, oh, I think this guy's just being arrogant as a deflection. It's a defense mechanism. This is going to be used as a distraction so he can negate away from he could distract away from the fact that he has no idea about any of these things. He hasn't really been following this case. And if you follow his channel, you wouldn't be shocked. Which is why I called his covering of the case extremely superficial. And I stand by that.
I think that's what most people mean when they say overwhelming evidence.
If you said something is overwhelming, I understand. But if you say overwhelming evidence, then that means you are extremely convinced. Because again, when you're talking about overwhelming evidence, what matters are the charges. So in other words, because if the charges didn't matter, you would say, is there overwhelming evidence that he committed larceny? How about strong arm robbery? Right? What about SA? Assault. That's not what he's being charged with. So when you say this, and that means it's the specific charges that he's facing, that you believe there is overwhelming evidence to prove or substantiate the allegations. That's what that means. But as we will later find out in this conversation, you don't even know what the charges are. But furthermore, the evidence that you're referring to does not prove aggravated unaliving. It does not necessarily prove tampering with the witness, obstruction of justice, violence with a firearm or whatever it was, violence in front of a minor. It doesn't.
So I have a brief opening statement. On September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk was murdered. Many of you already know a lot about the events which occurred.
Very strange that I actually just caught that. Why make that definitive statement that way as if people need to be reminded of that? On September 10th, Charlie Kirk was unalive. Well, you don't say. Why are you trying to ingrain that into our brains or engrave that into our brains? Right? What's that about? We don't have to waste our time with that guy because we already understand what's what there. That wasn't my point. I think my point has been proven with that. Again, this is just a recap of yesterday's conversation. So some of you believe that he was giving racism. Some people believe that he was coming off as racist. That is to say, he didn't respect me intellectually. I don't have proof of that. I will admit that his energy was very foreign to me. Like, I wouldn't want to be around him acting like that because as a grown man, when you are put in situations, let's just word it this way. When you are placed in situations where you become uncomfortable to the point where you are not sure what this person's motives are, bad things can happen. And so I'd like to stay away from a person like that if I'm not feeling comfortable around you, if you catch my drift. However, I will say that his comment section on his channel surely did give racist vibes, 100%. I went over to the comment section. I'm like, I wonder if people are like seeing what this guy's doing and if they become awakened, you know? I go over to the comment section and I'm completely baffled. You say, well, those are his supporters. Of course, they're going to support him. Well, that's not always the case. There's a lot of people with integrity from that channel, actually, that had differing opinions. I go over to the comment section, overwhelming amount of people. Oh, this guy is low IQ. Like, where does these terms come from? If for nothing else, one thing you can argue is that I'm clearly well spoken. I'm clearly articulate. I'm clearly some sort of educated, right? You would think that he was talking to a thug the way that they were talking to about me. Like, yeah, this guy's low IQ and he's a part of the Candace cult, and this guy is remedial. He's a retard. And why did you waste your time? Ha 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 ha. He actually thinks that Warren was threatening him. Such a dummy. This guy's dumb. He doesn't deserve to talk to Warren. All these, I'm like, am I missing something? Because clearly I'm missing something. You got a comment section full of mostly white guys who are probably Zionists behaving this way, which is another thing I wanted to ask Mr. Warren. Is he a Freemason and is he a Zionist? Because I think that would have given us great insight into some things into our dynamic. Probably even my opening statement mentioning Jesus Christ. What's interesting, though, is Warren I'm actually saved that. I'm gonna wait. I'm not gonna talk about that just yet. But the question I do have for people like Warren is this. Would you say, this is to Warren, people like Warren, people who are watching that takes Warren's position and worldview, which I'm sure some of you that's watching currently, if we're such dumb people, low IQ retards, remember that's majority of, I think it's safe for me to say, and I think I'm willing to say with much confidence, that majority of the conservative movement questions the Fed narrative. I think it's very safe to say that. So does that mean that majority of the conservative movement are retards and low IQ? Because if you're going to be very reckless and crass and just say the answer is yes, sure, then what would that mean for Charlie Kirk? What do I mean? Majority of the people following this are not only self-identifying as conservative or more conservative leaning, but they were in some way, some fashion, a follower of Charlie Kirk, a supporter of Charlie Kirk. So what are you saying about Charlie that he attracted all of these people to follow his message? They won't have an answer for you when you ask logical questions like that. I'm low IQ, I'm dumb, I'm a retard, except I'm the only one that's actually wanting to discuss and scrutinize the actual evidence that's in the trial. Not some theory I may have come up with on my own. Because if you noticed, out of nowhere, Warren goes, so what are you saying? Because you think Israel or Mossad, let's just say Mossad. You think Mossad would take him out in public in front of all these different people, and there are so many different ways that people can catch them, and that there's foreign implications that come behind that, and that could have other types of consequences. I saw what he did the moment he started. I just looked at dude and said, I never said anything about Israel. I never said anything about Mossad, bro. Where'd you get that from? You got to catch these people, because what he wanted to do was trap me. I never mentioned any other theories to you, bro. I'm talking about the case at hand. Why do you want to talk about things that we don't know to be true? How about we talk about the case that does exist, which makes no sense? That's what I want to talk about. He like, nah, well, I want to talk about my assessment of their debate. That's what I want to talk about. You keep wanting to talk about the evidence. Because like I said, he surprisingly didn't know any of the case. Very little of it. Like I would say out of 100% of what's been released, after yesterday's conversation and his videos about this topic, which have only been maybe 2 or 3 that I've seen, I'm willing to state that Warren probably is familiar with, accepting of maybe 20, 25% of the case, if that. 25% may be a stretch. I think he's familiar with maybe closer to 15%. Meanwhile, I've been covering all of it, keeping up with most of it. I probably know 90% of everything, 95% of everything. But it's so much stuff, you forget a lot of it. The fact that all we have is blurry images, blurry videos, yet Warren is still convinced that there's overwhelming evidence. I think one of the biggest quotes that someone put in the comment section yesterday that I said to Warren is, so let me make sure I understand. You don't even know 80% of this case, yet you're 80% convinced that he's guilty? Y'all can't, you can't make this up. He goes, well, I don't want to just call you dumb. Let me ask you something, Warren. Why would you take the Israel angle? I never mentioned Israel, which makes me want to question, are you a Zionist? I never said that. Why are you putting words in my mouth? I said, I don't believe what happened to Charlie. He goes, well, what do you think happened? That's not important. Who cares? We can have fun and speculate and put our tinfoil hats on, as you all call it, another time. Right now, let's talk about the actual case and the actual evidence. You don't see anything wrong with it? He agrees with me majority of the video that I guess that it doesn't prove anything. Then at the end, I ask him, so why are you overwhelmingly convinced again? He goes, well, when you have 2 sets of confessions, man, it's kind of, are you kidding me? You are not that superficial. You're not. You're not that superficial. We just discussed the text messages, bro. You know, the text messages that sound like, I said the unusual text. He goes, well, shooting a person is unusual. Really? You know how many people get shot in Chicago on a weekly basis, bro? How many of them do you think are texting like they're from the late 1700s, early 1800s? How many? Those are 2 different types of unusual. Just because something is unusual does not mean that it automatically goes with another thing that's unusual. Those things don't add up. Why is he speaking like that? Right? Here's a very big one. Warren stated, and this is one of the moments I knew he wasn't serious. And I said, I didn't share this in real time, but I'll share it here now. This is when I started to question if Warren is a plant. Yes, I'm saying it. I'm questioning if he's a plant. And by plant, like I don't think these are real people. Yeah, human, but I'm saying not organically in their position. Like they're placed in their position or something and they're put in place so that they can push a certain message and they can be used as like to help control certain sections of the political sphere. You know? At one point of the conversation, he goes, well, one of the issues I had with Candace was, why did she not double down, man? She disappointed me, bro. I'm looking to do like, you disappointed? I've been on your channel and I'm about to show y'all his channel and his topics that he covers. What are you talking about, bro? You don't cover Candace Owens unless you're going against her topics. Like, why are you talking like you were rooting for Candace? He goes, man, she disappointed me, man. Like, she didn't double down on any of the things she's been saying. Like what? Like the Erica thing. Oh, this is gonna be fun. I go, okay, like what? What did she say about Erica in the past that she didn't say during the conversation with Andrew Wilson? He goes, well, she didn't double down. He asked her if Erica Kirk was complicit, and she freaking said no. I go, Warren, complicit in what? Complicit in killing Charlie. Warren, Candace Owens has never publicly said that Erica Kirk is complicit in killing Charlie Kirk. She's never said that TPUSA is complicit in unaliving Charlie. You're very intelligent, bro. Pay attention to the wording, the semantics. She's very careful with what she says and what she do not say. She said that they're complicit in a cover-up. And I gave him an example. If someone assaulted you right now in front of my face, I didn't tell them to do it. I don't know the person, but I defended them. Or I made sure that they didn't get caught. Or I did things to set in place to make it more difficult to catch them. And it turns out my motive is because I found the girl to be attractive and I would like her number. You know, something said it really don't matter what my motive is. The point is that I'm helping cover it up. That doesn't mean I sent the person to assault you. It doesn't mean that I assaulted you. That's called a cover up. You are assisting. You are complicit in a cover up. All right. Not the direct crime itself. He goes, yeah, well, she could have, man, we all know what she mean. No, that's not how this works. You can't hear Candace say one thing, take the next illogical jump that she didn't say something, but it made you think that she said something. So now you're going to say, well, she may as well have said it, so I'm going to say she said it. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. I said, it's also very strange. He said, well, I still don't like that she should have just kept her word and just stood on it. Stood on what? She did stand on it, bro. She never said that Erica did something to Charlie. Well, man, all right, man. I see what you're saying. I just don't understand why she didn't. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's no getting through to this guy. I just presented something that is factual to him. He's rejecting it. But he's the one that's about critically thinking. I'm baffled. I also think it's very strange the way she, I thought it was very strange the way Andrew was asking Candace certain questions. He goes, well, he paid $300,000, so he better ask whatever he wants. Yeah, but that's besides the point. What I'm stating is, if Andrew is there representing himself and he just wants to debunk Candace, why is he asking her very specific and very strategically asked questions about if she believes Erica Kirk, TPUSA, or any of its affiliates directly had something to do with Charlie's death? If you're Andrew Wilson, like why do you in particular care about the answer to that question? Why? And why ask it the way that you did? According to Warren, there's nothing suspicious about it. Nope. Okay. And I think I may have already stated this, but it's also very strange. There are flock cameras all over Utah, yet we don't have a single 4K image or video still shot of Tyler Robinson on this campus. That is strange. Nobody finds it. That's very strange. Warren's like, We're just going to infer. What do you mean, bro? Well, they have all these collective pieces of evidence and they all collectively tell a story. So it's more than we got to any other theory. I'm just going to go with it. So Warren, are you stating that unless we can tell you who broke into our house, then the person that the police arrested just has to get arrested, even though there's good reason to believe that they may have not done it? You're saying unless I can provide evidence of who actually did it, then the person who may be getting falsely framed or arrested or charged, just let that person get charged for it instead. That's not how this works. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. I also thought it was interesting. Many of you all told me that's been following Warren for some time. You said that Warren was not being honest from the perspective of shadowy governments. You say that he has participated in documentaries or movies where they talk about shadowy governments, and he has extensively talked about this in the past. So you all found it very strange that all of a sudden Warren is behaving as if he don't know if any of the three-letter agencies could have been potentially involved. I already figured that was strange of him, but those comments only made it worse. Another thing that was very strange is that he kept telling me to be careful. Now, when I went over to his channel to look at his videos, somebody in the comments, some of the people in the comment section said, Didi, this guy is so dumb. He really he thinks that Warren is threatening him. And I'm like, well, hold up, bro. So the first couple of times or so when you told me to be careful, you were very thorough and very clear with your message. You were like, be careful with these sort of things. And I was so interested to see where you're going to go with it. And you go, because they can basically distort your mind and they can have you looking at everything suspiciously. And it can sometimes basically a very long way of saying confirmation bias, right? When you're so deep off into it, now everything you look at or look for is basically to confirm what you already believe instead of being objective. You may think that you're being objective, but you're really not. I understood at that point. But it was another 2 or 3 times, or maybe even more, maybe 4 times, where he said, be careful, but he didn't finish. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't elaborate. And these were at different parts of the conversation when we were getting to deeper things and potentially other things that may have happened to Charlie or with Charlie. I didn't like that. His energy was already very strange. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And I don't take like that in particular. I don't take it lightly. Like, what do you mean be careful? I need you to elaborate on that. And what's very interesting is that he admitted multiple times that he believes that he's not even convinced himself that Tyler Robinson is guilty, which blew my mind. Blew my mind. He's not even convinced himself that Tyler Robinson is guilty. And he's about 85% similar to Andrew Wilson, which I also thought was interesting. He used the same exact numbers that Andrew Wilson used. He said, I agree with Andrew, 75 to 85%. How surprising. Not surprising at all. For those of you, that was sarcasm, but something tells me you all knew that was sarcasm. So my question to people like Warren is, do you believe a man should be on a 2-dimensional level? Do you believe that a man should be put to death off 80% certainty? Because I believe you're telling us that you're uncertain yourself, even though you explicitly said it as well. Do you believe that he should be put to death? Which is also something I noticed that his audience completely ignored. They ignored all of the evidence that he wasn't aware of. They ignored the fact that he conceded that it's not very convincing that Tyler Robinson did this, yet he's 80% convinced. What? Like, bro, what? But he only focused on Candace saying 0% because he don't like that type of absolute answer. I noticed early on his strategy of pretending that I was an idiot. I used the word we when talking about the evidence. I said we don't have access to the phone. He goes, "Lord, who's we? Who's we?" And I was like, okay, there's a thing that's very condescending by we, and there wasn't a mishap. It wasn't a misspeak at all. We, as in the public, do not, we as in like the defense, because remember, we're taking the position of the defense. So pretending that we're taking the position of the defense and they are taking the position of the prosecution, I'm going to use the terminology we because it would apply. It would be applicable here. We, and also we as in the public don't have access to this information, as in what the metadata from the phone will tell us, right? He kept emphasizing who's we. Like you keep we what? Very rude, very disrespectful. Something else is very interesting, though, is I said this before. As I moved through all of the pieces of evidence, him going down the stairs, which, by the way, in yesterday's debate conversation, whatever you want to call it, we were responding or reacting to the video footage of Tyler Robinson walking down the stairs. And I was saying how Tyler Robinson's leg, the leg that he was limping with, was changing, which is very strange. And he was also bending both legs, right, as a result of this, while going down the steps, but also having a rifle in his pants. So when we were looking at the images, he talked about a bulge that could be seen in Tyler Robinson's pants. Well, I went back and I've looked at it, and I'm convinced, and I think somebody else in the comment section may notice it as well. Right before he started walking down the steps, he actually places his phone into his pocket. He placed his phone into his pocket. The bulge that we see in his right pocket, or is one of his pockets, is it? I believe it appears to be his phone. So that's a pretty big deal. Something else I thought was interesting that his audience also ignored was that Warren didn't know why Tyler Robinson is being charged specifically with aggravated murder. And that's important to understand because, again, it carries a much more serious and a much more longer and harsher sentence than just a regular murder charge, right? It's a capital offense. And the reason why, and I've shared this before, Tyler Robinson is charged with aggravated murder is because he pow-powed Charlie, supposedly, in a crowd of people, which placed other people's lives at risk. He could have unalived multiple people. This is what they're stating. But they also are stating that they're also classifying it as a political offense, which I believe Warren did mention. But the number one reason is because of the placement of it, right? It was in a crowd of people. So I thought he would have at least known that. Something else that was very strange that his audience also ignored was that he stated that the black shards in the bottom of the SUV doesn't look like a broken road mic piece. It doesn't look like broken road mic pieces. Blew my mind. Because earlier in the conversation, he was like, he seemed shocked about the evidence, to then later tell me he was actually being sarcastic throughout the entire interview. And of course, he does not believe that it looks like shards. Very unserious person. Wasted my time. I want to show you all, which reminds me, I want to show you all something. What I want you all to notice about his channel is that Warren, you're going to see here that there is an emphasis on, let me zoom out here a little bit. Tell me what you notice about his video topics. Let me see if that's zoomed in enough. Okay, let me move this chat so you all can see it. What do you notice about his video titles? Let's scroll a little bit. So we got Andrew Wilson confronts Candace and proves she has no evidence. Student shuts down my interview. Show him DEI is racist. RFK confronts Dana Bash. Woke reporter. How one man exposed the threat of Islam and Zionism. I'm sorry, he only says Islam here. Nothing about Zionism, okay? Dr. Fauci exposed. Leftist radio host realizes he was wrong. You seeing a trend? Look at this one. Leftist debater discovers the secret that makes Andrew Wilson so unstoppable. Something else I want you to notice are the views that he gets. I root for everybody. Get as many views as you can get. I'm rooting for you. But I'm telling you as a content creator that this is not always normal. It's not always normal to consistently get these types of views, especially for 8-9 minute videos. Consistently. I'm just stating that things like this, I'm not stating it as a fact, but things like this make me question if people like this are plants. 600,000 views for a 9-minute video. Legendary leftist exposed as a total fraud on trigonometry. 600,000 views. Check out this one. Andrew Wilson joins Turning Point and goes to war with Candace. Dennis Prager gets kicked out of event for triggering entire room of students. 200,000. Nick Freitas stuns leftist student. So the point that I'm getting at here is that something you'll notice about this guy's channel is that he spends a great deal of time talking about the left, almost never talks about the right or hold the right accountable. So therefore, he pushes the left versus right paradigm. That is to say, pretends that nothing is wrong on the right. For the most part. If you notice, he overwhelmingly defends Andrew Wilson. There's another one down here if I didn't get to it. Where's the other one with Andrew Wilson? See if I can find it. Andrew Wilson dismantles entire panel of anti-white racist. 500,000 views. But he was coming into that rooting for Candace. How about you don't root for Candace or Andrew and just root for truth? Brian Shapiro demands public apology after being laughed off stage. And on the thumbnail, you can see Andrew Wilson's his wife, Rachel Wilson. Students dismantled their leftist teacher in front of their entire school. Almost 900,000 views. Sheesh, man. You got to tell me the secret. How are you getting so many views? It's just easy. Effortless. Post whenever you want. Just get 500,000 views. Incredible. So the point here is, what I found interesting about his video topics is that he only talks about the left. He only talks about Islam. And he only talks about defending people like Andrew Wilson. That's not objectivity. But let's prove that. Let's further prove that.
She just needed to make.
This was the video in question. That was infuriating to watch. Just scrolling through these comments. Actually, we can do it another time. Let's get to this.
With how I feel.
Now, remember, he states that in my conversation with him yesterday that he is objective. That's what he said, that he's objective, right? He said that's how the quote unquote cookie crumbled, the logical cookie crumbled, that Candace Owens humiliated herself and she lost. She did a horrible job. Andrew did a great job just from a logical perspective. Okay. And he says this video was fair. I said it was very one-sided, very critical of Candace. There was a lot that he left out about Andrew. In my opinion, from what I heard, I didn't feel like he critiqued Andrew at all. But let's watch it back together.
Andrew Wilson is playing a very specific game. Most people will not even see it. I
stated this out before. At this point, you're talking about over 4 million people had already. At this point, it's over 5. But at the time of this video coming out, I believe like 4 million people watched this video, this debate. So he's stating most of the 4 million people aren't smart enough to see this Jedi mind trick game that Andrew Wilson is supposedly playing. In other words, let me translate that for you. Andrew Wilson completely humiliated himself. Warren very much so sees all the memes and see how he's been humiliated for making a fool of himself, paying a woman who he calls retarded, because all women are retards, paying her $300,000 just to humiliate himself and to prove that he doesn't know a single charge that Tyler Robinson is facing. Warren is very aware of this backlash. So he frames the video this way to try to pretend that Andrew Wilson is playing some 4D chess game. He's not. He showed up to debunk Candace, decided not to share the text message, which that would have been the perfect time to do it in her house, on her platform, live, which is why you said you wanted to debate somebody live so that they couldn't wiggle out of it, just to say you're going to share the text messages later. Text messages, Erica Kirk says, does not exist. So that's what Warren is doing here. He's already coping for Andrew Wilson, and we see right through it.
Has nothing to do with how I feel about either of these people.
Sure.
If you block out the noise and examine only the logic, suddenly you can see it in a different light.
Between 0 to 100, what is the likelihood that you think Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk and killed him?
Based on the evidence right now, I don't know. I'd say 75, 85%.
It's over with. That's reasonable doubt. We've been over it a million times. I get it, but debate's over right there. You got to put a man to death with 75% certainty? Of course not. You have to let him walk.
And then PBD turns to Candace, and this is the most important moment.
As you notice, he didn't talk about anything that Andrew Wilson just said. Any of the things that's wrong with what Andrew Wilson just said. He doesn't talk about it at all. But remember, according to Warren, what he told me yesterday was he was very fair in this video. Let's see. So we've already established he doesn't want to talk about Andrew's answer. Well, let's talk about Candace instead.
In the entire debate.
0%.
0%.
I'm at 0.
So
with what we've seen in terms of the evidence, I'm at 0%.
And that's the claim. She says there's a 0% chance. I mean, we're talking certainty here.
you're not even saying that he didn't even shoot Charlie Kirk.
Right. I would, if you said, was he involved that day? As I have consistently said on my platform, I would say, yes, he was. I don't know what role he played, but as the shooter, 0%.
If you're convinced there's a 0% chance, there must be some evidence of that beyond just, well, I think there's room for error.
Do you have any evidence for it?
For what? My percentage?
The fact that he didn't shoot and kill Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
I got excited. I was like, I'm going to learn something here because I want to figure this out. Based on the evidence she presents, I will change my mind.
We should go over the actual evidence that we feel.
The first reason that I think it's compelling evidence is that Tyler Robinson's rifle was found near the crime scene.
That would be an example of material evidence. We have something we can actually point to. Now, you can claim there's more to it, and that's what Candace does with DNA. This gets into a really interesting debacle.
You could have DNA on something that you've touched. You could have DNA on something that you've never touched. And to get DNA degradation, they've looked at pieces, items 20, 40 years on that don't have degradation.
Right here, she admits that items 20, 40 years on do not have degradation. Logically, therefore, degradation of DNA cannot be used to measure time.
Wrong. I debunked this yesterday when I spoke to him and he couldn't understand it. Let me explain it for anybody who may have missed it. The argument is not, can DNA last a longer time? It's not about the timing of it. It's talking about the amount of DNA. Why is there so little? So in other words, stating, well, DNA can last on a weapon for a long time, so therefore you can't rely on time to dictate who last held the weapon. No, it's not about the timing. It's about the amount. If Tyler Robinson is expected to be the most recent person that had the weapon, which is not the primary focus. The primary focus is, why is there so little of his DNA on it? Why is there so much that's degraded compared to all the other people that's on the weapon? It's not answering for it. Right?
Therefore, we cannot determine whether or not Tyler Robinson was the last person to touch the gun.
Wrong.
Based on your claim.
wrong.
Yet Tyler Robinson's prints, amongst 5+ other prints, were the most degraded on that weapon.
Yeah, that doesn't actually give you any evidence in your corner for Tyler Robinson being a patsy.
Okay, there's more presence of somebody else's prints, and that could demonstrate that somebody is taking items from his house and putting it into
But it
various
also
places.
could demonstrate nothing.
Okay, I just described that for you, so I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, so I'm going to move on from that.
This reminds me when I'm trying to debate someone about trans ideology. They're trying to explain how a man can be a woman. This doesn't make sense. Can you explain it again? I can't understand it for you. I can only explain it to you. This science is very obvious, Warren.
No, it's not the same thing. That's so disingenuous to compare that. That's so crazy, bro. He just compared that to a leftist who is pushing trans ideology. I'm really at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for words for a person that's claiming to be objective here. No, I think she did explain it, and I think she got her point across. It's just one of those things, specifically with somebody like an Andrew Wilson, who is just going to harp on semantics. He's going to go back and forth. It doesn't prove that he's a patsy. Tell me what's the inference to how you get the patsy. No, let's talk about that.
I don't know why people seem to think this is some.
Which that statement right there tells you Warren is very aware that most people saw this moment for what it was, which means by default, Warren is claiming that most people are not smart enough to see what truly happened here, which is absurd.
Gotcha.
The entire basis for why you think that there's evidence for Tyler Robinson being the person that took the shot is based off of a hearing under Utah 1102 rules, meaning that they are doing the exact same thing that I am doing.
That's a big moment. If we can't listen to anything that could be categorized as hearsay, we can't listen to your claim that someone in the French government told you about an attempted assassination plot.
Really strange. Once again, that has nothing to do with the Charlie Kirk case. First, let's take this. The statement you just made, I absolutely agree with you on. But she also emailed somebody in government. That's her story. But let's just grant you that. That has nothing to do with the Charlie Kirk case. But what this also proves is you're not, it seems that it's something personal for you. This has nothing to do with how you feel about either of these people. Yet you're taking every opportunity possible. Remember, we are 3 minutes into a 10-minute video. He still hasn't spoken about Andrew at all. Now he's mentioning things about Candace that has nothing to do with the debate and has nothing to do with the Charlie Kirk case. But he's objective. Okay.
Because that would be hearsay.
And what that means essentially is the people who are making the statements can just say, Patrick told me that he did this on Monday. Patrick's not here. And that is, they can allow that into the hearing. The entire preliminary hearing was hearsay.
Yeah, I'm fine with your inferences.
No, you just literally said I couldn't do that. Yes, I can.
No, I didn't. I'm just saying from your inference, how do we get to Patsy?
This is how you got to Shooter.
This was not actually a debate. She's not trying to argue that her claim is stronger. She's simply trying to argue, hey, it's viable and it's okay for me to think. And I agree.
But the entire substance of your argument is that people can't infer off of evidence.
No,
that's what you're saying
it's
to
not.
me.
And somehow she spins this into Andrew saying people can't infer off of evidence, which is the opposite of what I thought he was saying. I thought he was asking you for the evidence that you're using to infer your conclusion.
I'm telling you, that was what the entire hearing.
And this is, I think, one of the only things that I conceded to in the debate. I agree with Warren on this point. I think that Candace was just misunderstood here. I think there was a misunderstanding that was happening here.
Allowed for. So the evidence that he is describing,
we're asking you
that
now.
he is using to argue his case is all based on inference, not fact.
What?
Attention retirees, if you're willing.
Is that true? I'm listening to that over. I'm gonna play that back.
They have text messages.
To argue his case is all based on inference, not fact.
What? The court claims they have text messages in which he confesses. Pointing to that is not an inference. It's a fact. The court claims to have that.
It's a fact that the court claims to have that, but I think what she's saying, and I could be wrong here, but I think what she's saying is the text messages themselves, which is the point that I made in yesterday's conversation with Warren, are not, we don't have the actual device itself, right? So in other words, has it been proven that Tyler Robinson, but actually I'm gonna just bypass that. I'm gonna give that to them because again, evidence doesn't always mean actual proof. So for the sake of time, I'll just grant that.
Asking how you get to the inference that even if you dispute that piece of evidence, that means Patsy. I'm looking for the logical chain for how you get to that inference.
I answered that yesterday. I wish Candace would have said this, and that is to say, by definition of what the word patsy means, by definition, if Tyler Robinson is going down for something and we do not have considerable or convincing evidence, that is to say, we have blurry images and videos, and we don't have the device to be able to test the metadata to see what these phones to prove. One of the text messages, Discord messages that was sent later that night of the same day that Tyler Robinson was supposedly arrested, they were sent after he was already Mirandized. So by definition, if we believe that the evidence does not prove that Tyler Robinson took out Charlie, video footage is extremely blurry, does not prove that that's Tyler Robinson, not even remotely, then by definition, he would be a patsy by default.
I didn't say it equals patsy. I think it is enough evidence that it should be explored.
The claim was there's a 0% chance Tyler Robinson did this. This is not over whether or not you can explore this or that.
It is plausible that somebody just took his gun and put it there. That's it.
That makes me feel like Warren would have felt a lot better if she said she's about 10% convinced that he may have done it. So all he needs is a number higher than 0, basically. She's 1% convinced. That's really what the discrepancy here is. That's what I believe. He doesn't like that she was super absolute, which I can understand that. But you also have to understand that a lot of us have been following this case so long and been so invested in it that many of us are 0% convinced.
Then how are you getting to patsy?
If there's 100 other plausible explanations, then Candace, why is it that we should go with this idea that it was a patsy?
I'm not saying that we should go with the idea that it was a patsy. I am saying that there is.
I thought that was the whole defense, your whole claim.
No,
today.
My whole claim was that there is more evidence that he is set up as a patsy.
How does that equal evidence of patsy?
I don't know how many times I can say this.
That's a valid question, and the response he continues to get is, I can't understand it for you, Andrew. I can only explain it to you. Explain what?
Whenever we're dealing with logic and we're dealing with making a logical inference, we're going to take the entire collaboration of evidence and then we're going to make inferences from that. You would do that with any type of logical proposition. Otherwise, you could never have a true or false claim.
You just told me I couldn't.
So when that never happened. You're just making stuff up.
That's not saying you can't make inferences. He's just saying your inference doesn't add up to patsy. It doesn't make sense. That's all he's saying. He's not saying you can't think.
So I asked you how.
As a reminder, we are almost 6 minutes into a 10-minute video. Remember, this same magnifying glass, the same spotlight, the same hot seat, Andrew Wilson hasn't been placed under. Let's keep that in mind, because Warren's claim is that he was very objective and fair. So if you spend 15 seconds, 30 seconds of a 10-minute video speaking about Andrew and then the video ends, that's not the same thing, bro. Where's the objectivity?
With the inference you made, you got to the conclusion.
Okay. So I would like to know how you got to the conclusion. And I'm just going to throw it right back at you because for some reason you permit yourself to do it. And that's what I'm demonstrating is that you permit yourself to do it. Mm-hmm. And then you say, when I do it, it's a conspiracy.
But what about Andrew Wilson's inference does not make sense? Confession, gun found, DNA, security footage, inference. Which one of those doesn't make sense?
So now we're speaking about Andrew Wilson, but we're defending Andrew Wilson's position. Got it.
If you're asking for my inference, why I think it's Tyler Robinson's, because Tyler Robinson said in his text messages, you'll be able to see me on security footage at the campus. Said it in his own messages. On top of that, twigs, yes, you can pull them up if you want to fact check that. He did say.
Yeah, I would. I'm sorry. I actually think I really did miss that. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah, I think I really did miss that. I'm not saying that you're wrong. Yeah, I think I really did miss that. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm going to say it again.
At twigs, yes, you can pull them up if you want to fact check that. He did say.
Yeah, I would. I'm sorry. I actually think I really did miss that.
Yeah, I would. I think I really did miss that. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I've said it 3 times now, and you're about to see why.
Check that. He did say.
Yeah, I would. I'm sorry. I actually think I really did miss that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't remember him saying you're going to see me in.
I'm paraphrasing.
Can we pull that up?
Yeah, I think that's not right.
Right there, she said, "Yeah, I don't think that's right."
It was me. Look at the picture.
Yeah, but that's not all she said, Warren. What about the words she said before that? All of that goes together. She said, yeah, I don't think that that's right. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I just don't remember him saying that. Warren doesn't repeat that part. Why doesn't Warren repeat the part where she says, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I just don't remember that. Why does Warren not repeat that?
From the surveillance footage, it was me. Okay. I literally said to you, it's not an oof. I said,
Andrew was losing so bad in this conversation that this little small W he took, which she literally stated, not saying that you're wrong. I just don't remember that. I don't think that that's right. And because it turns out that he was correct about this, he's going to pretend that she said that with absolute fact, this never happened. She didn't say that. But he's going to take that W and pretend that it's a huge W. But he's not the only one. Listen to what Warren's about to say.
I didn't remember this, and I'm happy to have a fact check on that. Okay. I didn't call for the fact check saying you're wrong. I literally said, I don't remember that.
Well, rewind, but whatever.
Warren goes, rewind, as if to say, I'm about to show and prove that you said it. But guess what? Surprise, surprise. Warren doesn't rewind anything because he probably did so in editing it and realized, oh, wait, she did say, I'm not saying that you're wrong. So he pretends he just moves on.
For the fact check saying you're wrong, I literally said, I don't remember that.
Well, rewind, but whatever.
Okay.
So when we're talking about the
No rewind.
messages themselves, they seem totally valid. I have no idea why they wouldn't be valid. And I have not heard any good explanation for why it is that these messages should even be questioned.
Parking aside the intuition of just something feels wrong here, which you should follow your intuition.
But it has to be tempered with logic.
Literally started off by saying parking aside the intuition so that she can get to the actual facts and the logics of the case surrounding the case. He still pretends that he didn't hear her say that and goes, hey, but you still got to deal with the facts, bro. Did you not just hear the words she said? That's what you call manipulation.
Should even be questioned.
Parking aside the intuition of just something feels wrong here, which you should follow your intuition.
But it has to be tempered with logic, reason, explanatory power, and evidence, not just intuition.
That's why we're parking it aside. Intuition
You don't say, Captain Obvious.
is the first step.
But we don't get to the second step. She just continues to talk about intuition.
Warren is lying. And all of us that watch this, if Candace would have did what Warren just stated, we all would have called Candace out for that. Candace didn't do that. But as you're about to see here, Warren edited this clip to make it appear that what you're about to hear now was the very next thing that took place. And it's not. Go and watch the debate back at this particular part. He edited this. He clipped this up in a way to misrepresent the proper order that this conversation took place. Very, very dishonest.
Nobody came in medium, right? No one came in like there were some interesting aspects. This was a little suspect. But I do think it's enough to go to trial. They all came in like they were passing away and we're going to die from being
Well, they're
overwhelmed.
trusting their intuition.
Okay.
I guess we still haven't parked it. All right.
Right. We are at almost 8 minutes into a 10-minute video. He has still yet scrutinized or interrogated Andrew Wilson's position. Remember, he said he was very objective. So far, we've only talked about Candace Owens.
That aside, parking aside just your general intuition. Sometimes I might be second messages.
What did she just say?
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded.
Keep that in mind.
Could there be someone who logged into his Discord? Could there be someone who logged in to parking aside just your general intuition? Sometimes I might be second messages.
What did she just say?
Could there be someone who logged into his Discord? Could there be someone who logged in to his Apple?
I mean, it's possible. Do we have any evidence indicating that?
George could be sending text messages right now. We are married. He's had.
Well, that's the problem. They haven't been allowed to investigate that by way of the device, Warren, which is what I was talking to you about yesterday, that you seemed once again disinterested to even explore.
As every login that I have. And remember, he's up for a death sentence.
So there's room for doubt. Andrew even says that himself. That's totally fine.
That discovery was not.
End of conversation. End of debate. There's room for doubt. You can't persecute. You can't prosecute. You can't put a man to death when there's room for doubt. End of conversation, Warren. End of conversation, Andrew Wilson. What are we talking about?
Not met by the time I got to preliminary hearing. So I remain unconvinced by these text messages.
Same. And I think most of us feel the same exact way.
Just as you feel convinced by them, I feel unconvinced by them.
Okay.
Remaining unconvinced is different than saying there's a 0% chance he pulled the trigger. That's convinced. What convinced you?
We never get to the thing that I am disputing.
Well, I was just providing an answer. We were coming back in from a break.
It didn't look like she wanted to have a debate. She
What?
just needed to make it through this thing. And she's very good at that.
Here's the questions that I have.
Wait, before we get into that, I would like to just reply to that. So
Mhm.
just to be clear, we agreed to debate our claims. And
Mhm.
then I agreed publicly that I have no issues having a conversation with you about other things that I've discussed that were outside of the court hearing and things like.
As a reminder, we are now 9 minutes into a 11-minute video, 10, 11-minute video, 11-minute video. And we have yet to scrutinize or investigate, interrogate Andrew Wilson's claims, the defending of his claims, and all of his lies and bloopers in this conversation.
Other evidence that's come across our lap and things that we've been speaking about. But I just do want to make it clear to viewers that for whatever reason, you think that you have a right to sort of depose me.
I'm not deposing you. I just want to ask you some questions.
She's walking a tightrope here. She's not trying to argue that her claim is more viable than Andrew's.
Because you kept saying, I'm Joe Rogan. They have no evidence. They have no evidence. And now you're like, let's move away from the evidence.
You
Let's talk about
actually,
transcendentals.
yeah, okay. Anyway,
Candace makes a good argument that, hey, I'm just coming to my own conclusions. I'm just thinking independently.
So why are you so upset when people say they don't find it
if
convincing?
that was the limitation of the claims that you made, if it was just, wait a second, there's a little bit of problems. There's some problems in this case that I have questions for that I want answers to. Nobody would have a problem, actually. At least of all me.
The people who have their minds made up will likely attack even me for saying this. And that's okay, though. What is the alternative? I'm not going to compromise on logic itself.
A lot of this conjecture that's based on literally nothing, that leads from no inferences whatsoever. Like you couldn't even infer it logically. That's the problem. The problem has never been whether or not you just said, you know, there's not enough in this case so far until we get to the trial. I remain unconvinced. I'm sure there's tons of people who remain unconvinced yet until we get to the trial. I think that's fine. I think it's fine. There's people who are convinced too. That's never been my problem. My problem is the claims which are external to that.
She got Andrew on the ropes in that one interaction, being able to recall the 7 counts, though it's not that relevant to who actually killed Charlie.
So wait, hold up. So he told me yesterday that he mentioned this. Hey, you all, I want you to notice there's 10:51. The video is 10 minutes and 51 seconds long. We are at 10 minutes and 28 seconds. So the last 30 seconds of this video, he mentions it, and it doesn't appear that he's even going to play the clip. He only mentions it and then makes an excuse for it. You can't make this up.
Being able to recall the 7 counts, though it's not that relevant to who actually killed Charlie Kirk. That's the thing about facts and logic. It's either there or it isn't. You can attack the credibility. You can try and embarrass. It's like a truck driver can put forth logic.
Amazing. Absolutely astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Yeah, man. Wanted to get my thoughts on that. I don't think I'm going to do that again. And I got to take a little break before I debate another person, bro. I got some other topics that I want to get to. I've been going hard with the Charlie Candace thing here recently. I'm not saying I'm going to stop talking about it, but there's some other topics I want to get to. I think I got a really good video coming on Officer Tatum with Brian the Auditor. I got to look over the document he sent me, but I'm very, very excited about that. And they just started cutting grass outside of my house, so you all may be able to hear that. Which reminds me, let me know in the comment section if my microphone quality is subpar or if it's okay. Because if not, I can just buy a different one. Like, shoot, from the freaking super chats from you all alone, I should be able to get another microphone. And also let me know if you can hear my ceiling fan. Somebody has told me that in the comment section before. Yes, I read the comments. So let me know. Let me get to some super chats. Ellie, thank you for the $20. Didi, you handled this man's rudeness so well. Appreciate that. He refused to engage honestly in this discussion, but you stayed respectful and dignified. And before I get to the super chats altogether, let me make sure I didn't leave anything else out before people start clicking off. Yeah, I think I got to everything. Yeah, perfect. Gina, hey Gina, thank you for the $10. YouTube isn't letting my super chat go through. There's some weird things. I mean, it looks like it was able to work now. I'm not like I'm not complaining in general about YouTube, but I've just been some weird things that's been going on lately with my channel over the past like 2 or 3 days. Owen Benjamin said on X that he'd love to talk to you and or Jesse. He agrees with what I think, that they told Charlie one thing, but they end up taking him out. Please, can you make it happen soon for me? I have to make it happen. Owen has been liking a lot of my stuff and retweeting a lot of my stuff lately. I like the guy. That's who I want to see debate Andrew. I ain't gonna lie. That would be entertaining too. He's also very funny too. Thank you for the membership, Gina. That super chat took 5 writing to get it through. Kept telling me to edit. I'm not sure, but I think it was the word theory. That's weird. That's right. They do flag it depending on certain words. I just wanted to highlight this comment. She put this in at the very beginning of the live stream, but I caught it. I didn't know. I know she's a regular viewer of mine, and I didn't know she was convinced. Okay. It's getting through to some people because I understand why people believe that he's not here. Thank you, Gina, for the $10. My protective maternal instincts kicked in last night, and I was getting angry, unlike you. It took me a while to calm down afterwards. You did an amazing job handling it, Didi. I also felt proud of you. Well, I appreciate that. That was, I'm human. It was the biggest word I would use to describe it. It's insufferable. It was insufferable talking to him majority of that time, especially when I found out he was being sarcastic for a majority of the conversation. Absolutely, you won't get an opportunity to waste my time again. Won't happen. Thank you for the $5. I want to join your show. I love watching you. Email me. It depends on what you want to talk about. Like if you want to be on a panel, then maybe I can set something like that up. But thank you for viewing the video. Thank you for the $5. I think it's more than just Charlie Kirk. I think it's about truth, uncovering lies in the shadow government, which is what you are doing. Keep being the light. I see what you're saying. You're saying why he was behaving weirdly with me, which is what I did mention that yesterday. I was like, I wonder if he skimmed my channel. And that's when I was speaking about Freemasonry and things of the sort. Does make you wonder. Thank you for the $5. Marshall, you break down. Hey, Didi, when you have time, watch his debate with Brian Shapiro. Yes, I saw that on his channel. You'll see why he's racist. In my opinion, he looked at you as less than. Okay, I'll watch it. Now, if it's just him stating that he doesn't agree with DEI, I don't think that people are racist for stating that. Some people have good arguments why they say that, bro. But if it's based on the reasonings he gives, I'll try to check it out in my spare time and see what we talking about. Thank you for the $5, Gina. It seemed like he started to agree with you and was trying to pull back on it because it wasn't his agenda. A T-Mew, Andrew Wilson, loved how you handle it. Some people, I thought it was a joke. If they're calling Andrew Wilson Pickles, then they can call him Cucumber because he's not the... I'm joking. Just, same thing, different version. This is what I'll say. I thought that too, and I still think that to an extent, but his energy was so weird, Gina, that I was like, is he trolling me? Does he actually know this evidence? Because remember, I thought he felt that way about the floorboard of the SUV, just to get to the end of the conversation an hour later and tell me that, of course, it's absolutely absurd to believe that it looks like, or he's like, no, I don't think that it looks like broken pieces of a road bike. And I'm like, oh, you don't think that? Well, you had me fooled. I thought you were being serious there. He's like, I mean, I guess it could be. I was like, but you just said that it can be. It doesn't look like it. Yeah, man, just frustrating. So I'm like, and that's something else. Great point too, Gina, because I also noticed his audience wouldn't talk about that part. I noticed that part. And what I mean is his audience wouldn't talk about all the times that he conceded to certain things. Not very honest. Thank you for the $10. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ellie, for the $10. Wow, Didi, I think you get more views live than TPUSA lately. I'm pretty sure you're in their radar now. No doubt. Crazy. Crazy, which is what I said before. I think that's part of the reason they sent that orbit of TPUSA, Daily Wire, its overlords, funders, donors, whatever, may have sent Andrew Wilson, allegedly, to sort of infiltrate that space, because otherwise people wouldn't watch their content. Thank you for the $5, Miss White Peel. He said, quote, be careful not to get too caught up in this case. Yet the point of the debate was to see if it was valid to question the narrative. Right, but he kept making the conversation about his coverage of the debate, which I understood because that's what his video was about that I was complaining about. But think about that, though. If we're going to discuss the debate itself, I would imagine that just by default, we would actually have to discuss the case because, or at the very least, know the case in order to have a meaningful discussion, a meaningful discussion. But it appeared to me that it was so many things he didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I agree. Thank you. Thank you, Rhonda Smith. Thank you for the $5. My paranoid mind thinks he was only there to find out what you know. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't really out to get you. That's a bar. That's a bar. I agree. Thank you, Gina, for the $5. People are arguing that Candace Owens and others have no evidence, speaking as if evidence is proof. Very well said. That's what I was saying. Yet saying prosecution does have positive evidence baffles me. Very well said. It's hypocrisy. It's double standard, cognitive dissonance, not willing to turn the mirror around and hold themselves to the same standard. Thank you for the $5, Gina. The amount of people selling their souls for money these days is very disturbing. It's obvious that the devil is definitely in the detail set. I agree. This Officer Tatum video, I started skimming through the document that Brian, the auditor, sent over to me. I'm ready to discuss Officer Tatum. So y'all stay tuned for that one. Definitely stay tuned for that one. Andrew joins TPUSA didn't happen according to Andy. Andrew joins TPUSA didn't happen according to Andy. Yeah, I heard somebody say that. I'm not sure myself, honestly. Thank you for the $5, Gina. This is to the person who replied on my last super chat. People can make big money without selling their soul. That's a fact. There's definitely other ways. That's true. I agree. But it also depends on what we mean by big money. But if you're just meaning like it's some millionaires who didn't quote unquote sell their soul, I think there are some exceptions for sure. For sure. I agree. But then again, it all depends on what we're calling selling your soul too. And the way I think you're meaning it in the context of this conversation, then is probably more likely that somebody did sell their soul. Not saying that it's the only way. Thank you, Elaine, for the $10. All righty. All right, y'all. I don't want to make this too long. But you all tuned in. Thank you all so much for just rocking with me, man. It means a lot. I've went live a lot lately. I'm kind of tired. So I'm gonna go ahead and start preparing for my pre-recorded video that I needed to be working on. I got to finish up some research, and then I got to start working on my next Patreon exclusive. If you have not checked out the merch, link is in the description to the merch store. If you have not checked out the Patreon, even as a free member, I would highly encourage you. If you like long style deep dive videos, we have like maybe over 150 videos on Patreon. Don't quote me. I've been posting on Patreon for a while now. Go check that out. Give me your thoughts. Let me know what you think. I'm going to try to have the Kobe Bryant Sacrifice Chronicles Part 3 out here in the next week or so. All right. So stay tuned for that. Love y'all, man. And I'm going to catch you all in the next one. Peace.